December 15th, 2024. For most people traveling along Interstate 40 that night, it was just another cold December evening. Headlights cut through the darkness, semi-trucks thundered across the highway, drivers pushed forward through the night, without realizing that somewhere ahead of them, a mystery was unfolding, one that still has not been solved. Because somewhere between Huntsville, Alabama, and a lonely stretch of Tennessee highway, a man disappeared. And to this day, nobody truly knows what happened to Ronald Dumas. Ronald "Ronnie" Dumas Jr. was 37 years old, a successful realtor, a chemist, and most importantly, a father. Friends described him as dependable, intelligent, and deeply devoted to his children. According to everyone who knew him, Ronald was not reckless. He wasn't the type to suddenly abandon his life without explanation. That's why the alarm bells started ringing almost immediately after he vanished, because Ronald Dumas was the kind of man who always stayed connected to family, always answered calls, always showed up, and then suddenly, he was gone. December 15th had reportedly started like any normal day. Ronald spent time with his son earlier that evening before dropping him off at his ex-wife's home around 8 p.m. Nothing appeared unusual. Nothing suggested danger. Nothing hinted that within hours investigators would begin piecing together one of the most disturbing disappearances in recent American true crime history. Later that evening, Ronald reportedly spoke with family members on the phone. During the conversation, relatives could hear people in the background, leading them to believe he was out socializing somewhere in Huntsville. Nobody thought much of it at the time, but that short phone call would become the last confirmed contact anyone ever had with him. And after that moment, everything goes dark. Investigators later discovered surveillance footage from a liquor store on University Drive in Huntsville, Alabama. The footage showed Ronald entering the store with two unidentified women late that night. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. Ronald appeared calm, relaxed, unharmed. The three entered together, and later left together. And according to investigators, that may have been the last time Ronald Dumas was ever seen alive. Now, here's where the story begins to take a terrifying turn, because less than 24 hours later, Ronald's black Hyundai Palisade was discovered abandoned along Interstate 40 near Camden, Tennessee, over 100 miles away from Huntsville. The SUV was empty, no Ronald, no explanation, no immediate signs of violence, just an abandoned vehicle sitting silently beside one of America's busiest highways. Imagine that scene for a moment. A cold Tennessee morning, cars speeding past, and sitting there on the shoulder of the interstate, a vehicle belonging to a man who had seemingly vanished into thin air. Authorities quickly searched the surrounding area. Troopers examined nearby woods and fields. Search teams scanned the highway. But there was one horrifying problem. There was absolutely no trace of Ronald Dumas anywhere. No footprints, no confirmed sightings, no evidence explaining how he disappeared. And then, investigators uncovered something even stranger. Cell phone data reportedly showed Ronald's phone continuing westbound after his SUV had already been abandoned. Let that sink in. His vehicle was found empty, but his phone kept moving. Days later, data allegedly showed the phone traveling south from Memphis. And suddenly, investigators were faced with a chilling possibility. If Ronald wasn't with the phone, then who was? That single detail transformed the entire case from mysterious to deeply sinister. At first, authorities publicly stated there was no evidence Ronald had been abducted or harmed. But his family completely rejected that idea. They insisted Ronald would never voluntarily disappear, never leave behind his children, never abandon his career. To them, something felt wrong from the very beginning, and as days turned into weeks, the silence surrounding the case became unbearable. Search volunteers traveled across West Tennessee looking for answers. Drone teams scanned remote areas. Investigators worked to reconstruct Ronald's final movements. But despite all the searching, Ronald Dumas remained missing. Then came the moment that changed everything. In February 2025, investigators announced they had uncovered critical new evidence serious enough to officially upgrade the case from a missing person investigation to an abduction case. Suddenly, the entire story became far darker. Authorities revealed that investigators had identified the women seen with Ronald at the liquor store. Police also confirmed that multiple suspects were connected to the disappearance. 5 people would eventually be named in relation to the case, and for the first time, law enforcement openly admitted what Ronald's family had feared all along. This was not a voluntary disappearance. Something had happened to Ronald Dumas, but even after that major breakthrough, the biggest mystery still remained unsolved. Where was he? As investigators dug deeper, another chilling detail emerged. Authorities reportedly began searching a massive 450-acre area south of Memphis, stretching into northern Mississippi. The search involved multiple agencies, drones, search dogs, and crime scene investigators. But police have never publicly revealed exactly what evidence led them there. And perhaps even more disturbing, Ronald Dumas has still never been found. That silence has fueled endless theories online. Some believe Ronald was targeted in a robbery setup. Others suspect the women seen in surveillance footage may have lured him into danger. Some theorists believe organized criminal activity may be connected to the case. And perhaps the most terrifying possibility of all, that Ronald was abducted alive and transported across state lines before investigators even realized a crime had occurred. Think about how quickly it all happened. One moment, Ronald was speaking with family on the phone. A few hours later, his SUV appeared abandoned beside Interstate 40. Then, his phone continued moving without him. And after months of investigation, one haunting question still remains unanswered. What really happened to Ronald Dumas? Cases like this terrify people because they feel random, unpredictable, like danger can appear out of nowhere between one phone call and sunrise. And somewhere out there, someone may still know exactly what happened that night. Someone knows why Ronald vanished. Someone knows how his vehicle ended up abandoned beside that highway. And someone may know where Ronald Dumas is today. But until those answers come to light, the disappearance of Ronald Dumas remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in America. A father, a realtor, a man who seemed to vanish into darkness without warning, and somewhere between Alabama and Tennessee, the truth may still be waiting to be uncovered, because sometimes the scariest mysteries are the ones that happen in real life, and this one still isn't over.